All right, so let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining us here this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is David Bushy with IDP Connect. I'm joined by three of my colleagues, some based in the US, some based in the UK. But I should mention here, just before we get started, all based from home, as I know this is obviously extremely stressful times for many of us, both personally and professionally. And I think we are probably acting similar to many of our institutions and practicing social distancing. So therefore, all of us at IDP Connect, both in the US and the UK, are all working from home at this point. Just kind of two quick points here before we get started. I introduce everyone. I think obviously I touched on kind of stressful personal and professional times here, given the issues that we're currently facing with coronavirus. I think one of the key things that I think we can glean on from our experience over the years is that we will get through this and we will come out better. After all this takes place. I think, again, both personally and professionally here, these tough times challenge us, and they challenge not just our strategies, but our decision making. And throughout the course of my 10 years with IDP, I've noticed that when we face these difficult situations, like many of us in the US did in 15, 16, it helped us to rethink, to diversify, and to develop even stronger strategies. And I think these particular cases and these times will be no different. So we hope everyone remains healthy and happy, obviously, as we navigate through some of these really, really uncertain times. Just want to introduce a couple of people that are on the call here with me today. Again, my name is David Bushy. I'm the Director of Client Partnerships here in the US with IDP Connect. I also have joining me from left to right on my screen, Ellie Butler, who's our Director of Marketing in the US, Jonah Duffin, who is the Director of External Relations, but based in London. And finally, Simon Emmett, our CEO of IDP Connect, also based in London. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Simon just for a few opening remarks, and then I'll jump back on. Simon?
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone from London at home. So if you hear Bar Black Sheep, that is one of my two children just preparing for bath time. Hope that doesn't distract you. It's great to have so many of you on the call today. My role in leading IDP Connect includes heading up our client strategy globally. So what that means is that I'm your voice, our partner's voice on the global leadership team. We meet every couple of weeks virtually and every quarter face to face, and also the ears of our clients globally. So in terms of sharing what we're hearing across all the destinations and all the source markets that we operate in. I was actually in Singapore and Australia at the end of January, and this is when the current crisis really started to emerge. And since then, we've been having daily 6 a.m. calls, where as a global team we get together and support each other. And so I think just to touch on that, the support primarily is focused on our teams and supporting their health, mental and physical health, obviously with a number of our teams over in China. The support for our students, so many who are beginning their journey physically to go and study over in stopped. So the video calls, close contact with clients. And that's what this call is about, is connecting with you and works. We're going to get through this by working together. I'm celebrating my 20th year in international ed. It's definitely the biggest challenge that we've faced, but we're going to do that, and as an organization, our day is some of the digital innovation. Now, we will continue to work with our client advisory panels that we've got globally, who will shape those products and services. But any feedback today, either on the webinar if we have time at the end, and subsequently, would be superb. So we shape our products and services so that they work for you and your teams. So thanks again for so many of you joining, and look.
Thanks, Simon. Appreciate the words there. I think we might have had some connection issues there, so We'll jump over and I'll just get started here in running through the webinar. So as Simon had mentioned and alluded to there, obviously these are really challenging times for all of us, ambiguous circumstances. 2 weeks ago, I don't think any of us could have predicted the position that we're currently in here today. Over the past 2 weeks, we've had a number of institutions who have moved entire student bodies to online classes. They've closed campuses. I, for one, last week was on a number of campuses of some of our partner institutions and really got an opportunity to see firsthand the challenges that many of you are facing. We know that admissions and enrollment teams were really left with no choice. You guys have canceled spring enrollment, or spring recruitment travel, open houses, a number of different other things that have been pushed back, along with deposit deadlines and other situations and circumstances. Truth be told, I think for all of us, none of us here are experts at managing global pandemics. But we do know that having a robust digital strategy and a robust international recruitment strategy is really important. And I think that entails a number of different things, from on-the-ground presence to digital to armchair recruitment. All of these are really important and key components of a diversified approach. Being able to reach students globally is obviously absolutely critical, and ensuring that you have the perspective of students and parents so that you can reach them online is important as well. For those that are joining today, some of which are our current partners, we welcome you, and others who are prospective partner institutions with IDP, we welcome you as well, and thank you for joining us. Some may be familiar with IDP Connect, and while we don't want today's webinar to be commercial for the services that we offer, we do think it's important that we give you a bit of background and context so you know where we're coming from. I will say that I think it is extremely important that whether you choose to engage in conversations and discussions with IDP Connect or another organization that does something similar, all of us, I think, in these really challenging times would obviously admit that a digital or strategy that doesn't require you to be on the ground is really, really important. So quick background just on IDP Connect in terms of the company itself. Some of you know IDP, some of you would have known Hot Courses. These two organizations merged together. We developed the brand called IDP Connect. This brand is what we call a B2B brand, meaning that it is a brand that is visible to our partner institutions around the world. It is not a student-facing brand. Just to give you a quick bit of background in terms of the company and what we've joined together. So between the two organizations now joining together as IDP Connect, we've got over 90 million web visits per year. We've placed over 500,000 students globally. And we've got the largest combined data set and prospective student search demand around the world, and that's something I'm going to touch on here in the very, very beginning. On top of that, we've got the largest global network of counselors and counseling services, and these are IDP-owned counseling offices and IDP employees and our counselors. And our business model involves a couple of different things, but really kind of two main components. It's got digital upfront marketing fees and then commissions based on enrolled students, very similar to a student placement or agency-based type of service. So today we're going to be sharing a couple of different things, data to help to inform your marketing strategy. We'll also discuss numerous different ways that you can reach students digitally. Some of these ways involve working with us, others don't. And so we really hope that you just gain a kind of real holistic approach and view of the options in front of you during these really, really uncertain times. So we're working really hard as well on virtualization of our events, and Simon touched a little bit on that in the beginning. And those are some of the new things, some of the new features and implementation of these events that we'll be rolling out here in the very, very near future. Some virtual events have already been really, really successful for us, and we've implemented those in locations around the world, including recently at IELTS in China. Ran a virtual event for Australian universities, which was organized by IDP Virtual Counseling Team in India. It included 8 participating universities. After this successful event, the IDP teams around the world were able to learn from these experiences, and we're hoping that we can build on them and provide opportunities for institutions in other destination countries. Further coronavirus updates are currently being collated, and Simon touched on the means in which we've gone and the efforts that we've taken on a daily basis in order to ensure not just our teams are safe, but our students are safe as well. So with that being said, I think it's important we'll just jump right in, and we'll kick off with some of the data and insights that we want to share before I pass on to Jonah and Nelly to share what you can do with some of that. So just as we get started, I think looking at global data has become really, really important. And I think for most of us that are on this call, those that work for institutions or those that are responsible for building strategies, in the past, many of us have probably used sources like Open Doors, CVIS, application or enrollment figures from your own individual institution. Some may even be so forward thinking as to look at organic applications or organic search results to your site to look into the future in terms of where you want to go. But I think we can all admit that big data is key these days, and using data to drive and to develop a strategy is really, really important. I think a data-backed approach is really the way of the future. So things are no different at IDP Connect. We use big data in the way that we recruit and engage with students all the way through their journey. I like to think about the ways that us as consumers purchase products and consider products on our own. And I think Amazon is a really good key example of that, and how in many ways they kind of know us better than I think we might know ourselves. It's kind of a scary thing to think about, but I know that they're oftentimes suggesting products and services that I feel like I've only ever thought about, but somehow they know that I want them. Facebook, I think, is another key way that uses big data and algorithms to determine individuals that may be your friends that you've either lost connection with or interaction with, and things are no different in the way that we recruit international students. Nowadays every good strategy starts with a data-backed approach, and so at IDP, as I mentioned earlier, with the world's largest combined data set and prospective student search demand, we're able to look into the future to help you to plan effective travel, recruitment, engagement all around the world. We do so in a number of different ways. I'll talk about in a little bit some of our real-time course search and market demand data. We obviously have the student placement component of the work that we do, where we're able to see number of enrollments that we've placed and where we've placed them from, student, parent, buyer behavior, and then obviously sector data, which is readily available to all of us and I'm sure that we use. So kind of looking in a bit at some of the real-time course data that we use. I'd just like to jump into what that looks like and give you a bit of context before I pass on to Jonah and to Ellie. So obviously this slide is likely not a shock to most of you on this call. We are seeing that demand for digital search over consecutive years continues to decline in the US, and that's really mirrored the Open Doors data that we all have seen over the course of the past few years. I think combined with a solid year-over-year increase in markets like Canada, the UK, and even Australia kind of being flat, we're seeing that these are really kind of challenging and tough times for us. One thing that I would point out here is that over the course of the 5 years, the market share of search demand to the US across all of our markets has declined, almost cut in half. I think the one kind of key takeaway or one positive takeaway in looking at this is that we've really seen over from 2018 to 2019 that the search trend has kind of flattened out. And this might suggest that we've seen the bottom or we've hit the bottom. Now, obviously, these things wouldn't take into consideration coronavirus just yet or anything like that. But I think just kind of looking at the positive side of this is I think that we may find that in the course of the next year or two, given that the student journey is typically 12 to 24 months in advance, that the US numbers would start to flatten out or even increase year over year. So kind of positive sign there. Looking just a bit more specific regarding coronavirus, I think, in light of the current situation, it's probably important that maybe we perhaps look at the impact or effect that this has had on search results. And the one kind of positive note here is that year-over-year search results to the US have actually increased from 3 key markets for us around the world. So in looking at Brazil, India, and Vietnam, almost across the board, these numbers year over year are almost the same, or they've increased in the case of Brazil and in Vietnam, increased considerably. So we're just looking at bi-monthly time periods. So looking at January 1 to 15, 16 to 31, and then so on all the way through the middle of March. And we're seeing that year over year, the darker bar, which is 2019 or 2020, I should say, that these results are up across the board. So really kind of positive signs. Kind of 2 takeaways I guess you could glean from this. One is the feeling that Generation Z, is still interested in traveling, and this hasn't, kind of hurt their mindset of wanting to gain or that kind of global international perspective. So one kind of key sign there that we're seeing and looking at some of the search demand. We oftentimes think of competition here in the US, and we think of it on just the national level. And I think it's important to note that the data suggests that students applying to the US are oftentimes or 2 times more likely to also apply to an institution in another English-speaking country. And kind of, take New Zealand as the outlier here. Many of those students also apply to Australia, just given proximity. But in the US, we find that students are 2 times more likely to apply to another destination. This is likely driven by, from what we can find, political concerns, policy change, visa approval rates, application turnaround time, and concerns over the fact that they may not get into their top institution. And all that is supported by looking at the student placement data that we have and really starting to dig in and to derive some real reasons why students accepted offers elsewhere. And what we're finding is that when you strip out some of the non-controllables like personal reasons, the key reasons why students accept offers to other countries are really around, perhaps not getting into the #1 university of their choice and choosing an institution that, maybe is ranked higher, provided them the offer first. So it's important to note that not only do we have national competition, but really competition is at a global scale as well. To kind of wrap things up here and to end on a high or a positive note, I think, for IDP and from our perspective, the picture is not all that dismal. In fact, it's a really positive picture over the course of the last few years in terms of placements to the US. While the base is lower in the US than some of our other countries like the UK and Canada, year-over-year growth remains really, really strong for us. In 2018-19, IDP placed nearly 3,500 students. And today, 1.5% of all new international enrollments in the US come via IDP, which is really built around our digital transformation, meeting students earlier in the process, and really nurturing and that handheld approach. So with that being said, I want to pass on to Jonah and not take any more time so that Jonah and Ellie can jump into what you can do in order to capitalize on some of this.
Thanks so much, David, and thanks everyone for joining us. I hope you are all safe and healthy. I see a few names on here of folks who I've traveled with on recruitment tours before, so it's great to have you with us. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ellie Butler. I am marketing manager for the USA at IDP Connect. I've been with the company for about 5 months now, and prior to this role, I worked in universities for 9 years. And I spent the past 6 years working in international marketing for Temple University. So now that I am with IDP Connect, I'm able to have a really holistic view, combining my experience working on the university side with the knowledge of all of the best practices that our partner universities are using in their marketing. And today I will be discussing developing a marketing strategy to reach and attract international students. So why is this so important? Well, unlike domestic students, international students typically have very few preconceived notions about your university. So therefore, there is a tremendous opportunity to shape the narrative that international students are finding online about your institution, to make a strong initial impression on them and their parents, and to speak to the factors that are most critical to them. And of course, as we all know all too well now, you simply cannot rely on recruitment travel alone to get the word out about your university. So having a marketing strategy is absolutely critical. So where do you begin when building your institution's marketing strategy? Well, you have to evaluate your resources. And you have to ask yourself, how much is my institution already spending on such a strategy, and what are the results? Maybe there is a strategy in place, maybe it's completely non-existent. What resources are in place to support an international marketing strategy, both human resources and financial. So some institutions have specialized international marketing staff, while others rely on a central marketing division who might service multiple departments and units throughout the institution. And still others might have no human resources or support in place for carrying out such a strategy at all. But all hope is not lost, because it's in cases like that where you can certainly start to build a small scale strategy with the help of a graduate intern or by employing the help of an external company. Now, of course, financial resources can be a much bigger hurdle, which means you have to get buy-in for this strategy across campus. And getting buy-in for international marketing means getting buy-in in 2 distinct areas: buy-in for internationalization and buy-in for digital marketing. So getting buy-in for international marketing, I am certain that this is nothing new to any of you. In my 9 years at institutions, I was advocating to leadership, board of trustee members, whoever I needed to advocate to in order to get buy-in and increased support for initiatives that would help increase international enrollment. So how do you make such a case? Well, you have to have your facts ready. I am sure that you all know the billions of dollars that international students bring to the US economy. You also know the number of domestic high school students graduating and heading to college has been declining in the US. And this means that international students are increasingly important to keeping our classrooms full and our tuition revenue up. But even more impactful than those points, in my opinion, are the results of a Duke study that show the demonstrable benefit that international students bring to US campuses and American students. So Duke researchers found that when they studied alumni from several different universities, they found that Americans who engaged with international students were more likely later in life to appreciate art and literature, to read or speak a foreign language, and to re-examine their political and religious viewpoints. They were also more likely to re-examine their beliefs about other races and ethnicities, according to the research. And these findings apply to US students who actively interacted with international students in classrooms, dorms, or elsewhere. So clearly there are massive benefits to our campuses beyond the financial ones, and we must affirm the importance of international students to our campuses in order to get this buy-in. The second thing that you must advocate for is digital marketing, because you simply cannot travel everywhere. And in situations like the coronavirus, you can't really travel anywhere. So it is critical that you have a digital presence. Students are actively searching for you online, and digital marketing generates both inquiries and applications and delivers conversion on each. It's available 24/7 and it's global, which allows you to expand the reach of your lead generation efforts into markets where you may not typically travel. And this just helps to ensure that you have a wide range of recruitment sources to draw on in the event of unexpected market fluctuations, just like we are experiencing now. But most importantly for the field of international education, it's where prospective students are, it's where they are starting their searches. So once you have evaluated your resources and you've advocated across campus for internationalization and digital marketing, you begin to form your objectives. And these are very much related to your enrollment objectives because that's what they will support. So perhaps you want to raise brand awareness in diverse markets. You want to encourage click-throughs from a particular country to your website or promote a certain program to international students. Whatever your objective may be, it will help guide the tactics and the channels that you use to disseminate your marketing message. And in order to disseminate such a message, you need to know where it's going to go. So you need to identify which countries or regions that you will target. To do this, we look at the data of international student mobility, of course, using historical sources like Open Doors and where your applications and your inquiries have come from in the past, but also staying ahead of the curve and looking at real-time prospective student data, such as our demand tracker tool, which David spoke to and showed a bit of data from earlier. Because we hold the largest data set on prospective student demand in the world, we're able to help you identify new markets for recruitment, travel, and marketing investments. And now that you've identified your target markets, you have to do some research into understanding them. This is critical, especially in a field like international education, where you might market to a student from Brazil differently than you'd market to a student from China. Information on your target markets can come from various sources. So market reports online, anecdotal evidence and experience from your own travels or the travels of your recruitment staff. But my very favorite way to gauge information on your target markets is through focus groups with current international students. I used to run such focus groups in my previous institution. We would do both mixed country focus groups and country-specific focus groups. And we found that the country-specific focus groups were really valuable. Students were more likely to open up about their culture, their beliefs, what kind of marketing they think would be most effective for their country. So of course, it's a little challenging to do focus groups in a situation like we are experiencing now, but you could certainly run some virtual focus groups through things like Zoom or Skype and still connect with your current international students. And once you start to understand your target markets a bit more, a helpful way to organize your customers is through buyer personas, which are essentially fictional representations of your various user types using a combination of demographic and psychographic data. And once you have a solid understanding of your target markets, you want to ensure that you have really great content. And for that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Jonah Duffin, Director of External Relations.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, my name's Jonah, Director of External Relations. This isn't my first Director of External Relations role. I was at a University of London for 12 years, and while there, responsible for all student recruitment and for setting up the international office, and took income from students, international students, from very, very low up to it being over a quarter of all of our institution income. So a great deal of experience in recruiting international students. I'm going to try and be the bit of a Pollyanna this evening, and basically show you lots of pictures and lots of videos, and try and show you how best we can promote our brands, our stories, our reputation, and our narratives in a way that really cuts through, is memorable, and that people understand what you stand for, and really want to engage with you further. So I'll move on to the next slide, because what I really want to talk about is something called content marketing. And I think in a world where we're moving further and further away from the idea that people find it acceptable for their content that they're consuming to be interrupted by advertising. If you think about Netflix, and you think about the way you consume content on the internet, you don't want pop-ups, and you don't want adverts ruining your film. But what you do want is to be able to find really quality content when you want it, and you want it to be useful to you and to help you along your journey to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, whether it's something you want to buy or a problem that you want to solve. And that's really where content marketing comes in. It's an approach where we display and we create and we publish valuable, relevant content to people who actively want to find it, rather than using it to interrupt them consuming other content. So we're creating things that are useful and shareable and provide that real value to people. This is just a bit of a light-hearted slide, just to show the importance of creating good content and showing how much noise there is around at the moment about the huge amount of content that's being created, that yours can so easily be lost. My favorite stat in this slide is that more photos were taken in 2015 alone than in the entire history of the analog camera business. Huge millions and millions of Instagram posts, Facebook statuses, texts, tweets, social media, news stories, rolling news, huge amount of stuff being bombarded to people. So whenever we create content, we have to make sure that it's good and that it's valuable and useful, and that people want to consume it, and that it will help them along the way. So again, I did promise pretty pictures, and this is what I call 3 under a tree. So it's really to highlight the need to be unique and to tell your institution's own unique narrative and unique story, and really be known for something. And if you go to any prospectus, any university brochure, you will find 3 people either walking or sitting under a tree on a campus on the grass, all looking incredibly happy. And just to take this a little bit further, this was a quick search that Ellie, my colleague, did, and you can begin to see there that we're not getting unique. We're not seeing people's story. In fact, what we're seeing is lots of people using exactly the same strapline. They're not able to stand out from the crowd. They're not able to tell what their narrative and what their institution stands for. And I think in this instance, we as marketeers and as recruiters and people representing our universities can go a bit further and try a bit harder to really show what is special about our institution. And I think this slide really highlights that. So this one, again, is about, being fantastic, and there's no criticism to be taken at all of either the University of Buffalo or the University of Sydney. They both have absolutely wonderful buildings. They both have lovely fonts. It's just that they are, as it says in the title, eerily similar. And this can happen, and it's sometimes unavoidable, but it means that what sits behind these images and what sits behind these fonts really has to be memorable and has to set us apart. So in the next part of this presentation, we're going to begin to unpack how we do that and then relate it back to international higher education. So let's find out how we can really cut through that noise, capture people's imagination, be known for something. Every institution has something about them, or multiple things about them, that no one else can say, that no one else can do, and we really need to unpack them and be able to promote them. I was incredibly lucky at my former institution that we did all of our teaching in the evening from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. London's evening university. It stood out. It was a really easy USP. Everybody else has got something like that. There's a university just around the corner from me here in West London called St Mary's. They have the most friendly, wonderful suburban campus, and they really go to town on unpacking that. So that's what they want to be known for, and everybody needs to be known for something. We also need to be authentic. There's no point in lying to people. There's no point in overdoing things and exaggerating things. You will be found out. So find something that, again, is authentic to you, and then tell it as a story. There's a lot of scientific evidence that storytelling gets another part of our brain going. We file it away differently as a memory, and that then means that we're able to recall it more because it was part of a story, part of a narrative, rather than being just facts and figures and other headlines. Again, great imagery, photography, and to me, really engaging and well-written copy. I think in the world where we're constantly updating our Facebook and our Twitter statuses, and we're pushing things out so quickly that really good copy sometimes gets forgotten. But as educators and educating institutions, I think it's really important that we write wonderful copy and wonderful stories, and then we can put it out there for this 24-hour generation, and they can consume it digitally as and when they want. So these are just a couple of examples of really good, I think, content marketing, and they really highlight three of those key aspects that we talked about narrative and about sharing and about engagement. So I loved Lego as a kid. I have two small children that you may hear in the background at any point, and they weren't that into Lego, which was devastating to me until they watched the Lego Ninjago movie. And then when they came back, they really began to engage with the Lego. And it was that story that the film built that gave them that access and gave them that understanding and created that sort of that narrative for them that allowed them to play and really engage with the Lego. And so again, as educators and as marketeers, can we build those stories about our institutions so people feel more able to engage with us? Then we've got Coke with their brilliant campaign where they put lots of names and everybody was sharing that, taking pictures of their name on the Coke bottle or their friend's name and sharing it with them. Again, really creating that engagement and that user-generated content. And then there's a McDonald's advert, and I think McDonald's do some absolutely fantastic advertising. And this was with Canadian farmers, and it really reached out to some of the concerns that their consumers had, tried to waylay those concerns in a positive way, and invited feedback in order and allowed people to engage with them in a really positive way. So again, another example of how we can work with people and understand what content they want, try and solve some of the problems that they're looking for, and at the same time engage with them. So the next slide I want to show you is a film, and I really hope it's gonna work. If not, we'll cut it halfway through. But the reason that I want to show it is because I think this takes quite simple photography and quite simple messaging to build a story. around a certain product, which I won't ruin what it is until the end, and is really able to communicate in that memorable way, something quite different. So Ellie, let's give it a go, and fingers crossed. I'm not getting any sound.
Hi, my name is Åke, and this is my home. Roughly 100 million acres of land, that is all mine. Well, I share it with 10 million other people, but I'm speaking on their behalf, so to speak. Welcome to the relaxation area. It's very spacious, to say the least. And check this out. 100,000 tempered infinity pools. This is my terrace. Custom designed with panoramic floor-to-ceiling views in every direction. And this is my bathroom. Swedish minimalistic style, completely outfitted with all necessities. Last but not least, here is where the magic happens. And here. And here. And sometimes here. You see, in Sweden, we have this thing called freedom to roam. It's a right protected by the law that allows me to sleep and eat and walk pretty much wherever I want. Now you can too, because we listed the entire country on Airbnb. Welcome to my home. Welcome to Sweden.
Great. So, like I said, I think that video, it takes the idea of the right to roam, and that's the narrative, and that's the unique selling point of Sweden. And I think it's selling Airbnb in Sweden, but it's also selling Sweden as a destination. And whilst we promote our institutions and our universities and our colleges overseas, we're also promoting a destination. And I think the idea that you don't have to show pictures of lots of different apartments in order to highlight Airbnb, and in the same way that we can find different ways of highlighting some of the unique things about our institutions. So what's this got to do with international student recruitment? Well, they've got huge choice, as David highlighted. They're not just competing, we're not just competing against each other as US institutions, we're competing against other countries. They've got more information than ever. Everyone's trying to bombard them with information. We need to do really great content that will cut through and give them the information they need in a memorable way. They're much more marketing savvy. It's the idea of being authentic. They really want to find authentic information and not necessarily be so overtly marketed to. So once we've done all that, we really need to find the right platforms to get that content out and supply them with the right information. And that's something we feel we do at IDP and IDP Connect. And I think Ellie's going to talk a lot more about the platforms. So I'll leave that point for now. But I think I've hammered this home enough already. I'm going to really whiz through this slide. Really work with your students, work with your colleagues, work with academics to really understand what your unique selling point is, what makes your institution really stand out, and then find ways of wonderfully telling those different stories. Maybe you want students to tell their stories, your academics, find ways in which you can really communicate what makes yours special. Sorry, I just lost the slides then for a minute. And try to find ways of communicating that aren't the same as what your competitors or your peer group are saying. To find new ways in order to show your story. And then last but not least, really, is user-generated content. Something that we really would be remiss to not mention. Your students really are your best marketeers, and if you're scared of that, then really don't be. It won't take too much searches around the internet to see that they're already generating content about you. They're already talking about you. How can you work with them to amplify that and give that their voice much more credence? And nothing better for an international student than to see other international students really enjoying themselves, succeeding, being successful on campus. So last slide from me before I quickly pass over to Ellie. I think I've done my time just about. So let's build some really great visuals, really think about that copy, the quality of the tone of voice. Make sure that it's so good that people want to share it. They want to send it to their friends, they want to send it to their parents, and try to as much as possible to give them that content at points when it's timely, when it's helpful to them. Make it easy for them to find at points when it will help them in their journey. Be authentic, and then really get it out in front of the right people. So that's my bit. Back over to Ellie. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jonah. And just before we jump into marketing through the admissions funnel, a quick note on shaping your message in these challenging times. So first and most importantly, remember that prospective students are human. They are young, they're considering traveling halfway across the globe for education, and they're facing even more uncertainty than usual right now. So it's really critical that we are transparent and authentic in our messaging. And I think it's great if we can promote all the ways that we're supporting our current international students. So if you have an existing email campaign, or if you can post on your social media ways that you are supporting current international students, I think that will do a lot to show prospective students that you are caring and you are showing solidarity. And finally, join the In This Together campaign. So this is a campaign that was started by Study in Australia, and it's now been adopted by numerous universities, companies, industries all over the globe, because we are all fighting the same fight and struggling with the same thing, but we're going to be okay, and we're going to make it out alive, and we're facing it all together. So definitely consider joining that campaign. So now that we know our objectives and our target markets, and we have a ton of great content, thanks to everything that Jonah showed us, we can talk about marketing through the enrollment funnel. So I'm sure you are all familiar with the enrollment funnel. Sometimes folks use different words at the top, like suspects or opportunities, but when you boil it down, we're essentially all talking about the same thing. So students need to become aware of your institution and its offerings in order to consider becoming an inquiry, and they must be drip-fed information throughout the funnel in order to be guided successfully through it. So we'll start at the top of the funnel when students are beginning their college search process. And the objective at the top of the funnel is to raise brand awareness and to pique their interest. Based on our annual student buyer behavior research, we know that students are starting this process with broad online searches for program or destination information. They typically have an idea of what program they want to study, so they conduct searches online to find institutions that offer what they're looking for. So if a student does a Google search for study engineering in the USA, your institution's website is not popping up in those search results. Rather, it's college search aggregators that are showing up. So having your own website is critical, but it's not enough at the top of the funnel. You need to have a robust digital presence outside of your website so that these students are actually finding you. And some tactics at this stage include having a really content-rich profile on these college search sites and doing paid social media advertising to introduce your university and your brand to students and lead them back to your website. And we found this point to be reinforced by our 2019 Digital International Student Survey. So on this block chart, you can see that search engines, university search sites, and the university website are the main sources and points of research for prospective international students. So what are college search sites? Well, just as you would use Yelp to find the best restaurant and Expedia to find the right hotel for you, students are using college search sites to research and compare institutions and to explore their content. So they can log on, they can conduct this research, shortlist their favorite universities, and then send inquiries to them. And we operate a range of student-facing websites across Hot Courses and IDP.com. And our profiles, which are called content hubs, are focused on immersive video-led content, allowing institutions to showcase the stories that resonate most with prospective students. Another great way of getting your message out at the top of the funnel is using translated microsites. So translated microsites are essentially your content translated and hosted locally in country so that students and parents can view and consume it more easily. Local hosting allows for faster load times than your primary website would, and translated content allows students and parents to learn more about your institution in the language that they are most comfortable and familiar with. And we do this at IDP Connect. We offer microsites in 9 different languages. They are hand translated by our team of native language experts. So we are not relying on automated translation services like Google Translate. And this is another piece of data from our 2019 Digital International Student Survey, which showed that international students said that it is very useful for universities to translate their admissions and marketing material. So again, reinforcing the importance of microsites. Jumping into paid social media marketing, another option at the top of the funnel, which involves advertisements served to users while they browse social media platforms with the goal of raising brand awareness and generating traffic to their websites. And this requires you to have really great content that makes students want to stop their scrolling and pay attention to your message. In order to utilize this for international students, you'll want to focus on markets where social media is most utilized. So in this graph, just released from Hootsuite and We Are Social, you can see the average amount of time that people from each country spend on social media, how much it is or is not a part of their daily life. So in countries over here on the left, like Philippines, Colombia, Brazil, Nigeria, these folks are spending over 3 hours a day on social media, while people all the way on the right in countries like South Korea and Japan might be spending an hour or less on social media. So it makes sense that you would want to put your social media marketing dollars toward a country that is very engaged with it. And on this next chart, also released from Hootsuite and We Are Social, we have the world's most used social platforms. And you can see that Facebook is at the top, no surprise there. So despite what you may have heard about Facebook dying for younger generations, that is actually not the case. Generation Z is active on this platform and they are engaging with it. They just also engage with many other platforms. You can see here TikTok rising up surprisingly above Snapchat and Twitter, but TikTok is actually not a great place for brands to promote themselves. It tends to favor more viral videos created by users, and it has a very fast-moving algorithm. So not a place that you want to invest a lot of your marketing dollars. So in the middle of the funnel, our initiatives involve asking students questions, students ask questions like, what is campus life like? What are your courses like? Are your graduates successful? And where do your students intern? So here we want to make sure that we are re-engaging students with content marketing. We are drip feeding information to them and providing them information to help them along their journey through the funnel. So here we use tactics like intentional email marketing campaigns, running webinars, using automated SMS messages, maybe starting a student blog program. And for students who become IDP leads on our website, we help you out with this step. So we keep students engaged, we repurpose content from your content hub, and we send students automated emails and SMS messages based on those. And it's in this stage, the middle of the funnel, where you really want to share content about campus life and career outcomes so that students can start to picture themselves as a student on your campus. You want to keep leads that you've met on the road engaged, and you might want to consider conducting webinars for these leads in order to provide additional info. And then at the very bottom of the funnel, students here are asking questions like, will I be successful at your institution? What kind of support is available for international students? Where will I live? Will I fit in? So in this stage, some of our objectives are to provide personalized communication and demonstrate a sense of campus community and belonging. And you might choose to do that through some of these tactics on the right, like a student ambassador outreach program, more on that in a minute, personalized email campaigns, and digital acceptance packages or videos if you are not mailing these to students in country. So a little bit more on that student ambassador program. At my previous institution, we worked with a group of about 10 international students, and we had them write personal emails to our accepted students. And the response rate was absolutely incredible, and it really helped to demonstrate a sense of campus community and connectivity. So this was definitely a very strong yield tool. And your marketing outreach really should not stop once a student deposits either. As we all know, it is getting increasingly important to avoid melt So be sure that you are continuing to share exciting updates and personalized content along with all of the administrative emails that students will be receiving prior to arriving on your campus. So now that we know the various touch points throughout the funnel, how do we monitor the success of an international marketing strategy? Of course, if your institution has a CRM in place, you will use that to track the number of inquiries that become applicants. You can use the analytics from your digital marketing efforts to gauge which of those were most effective. And if you have one of our college search profiles, you'll get a dashboard where you can see the number of searches, impressions, inquiries, and web clicks that you're getting. And your leads will be sent to you in real time. We also have a really handy tool called our Enrollment Matcher tool, where you can upload a spreadsheet of your enrolled students, and we match it to our database of students who have viewed your profile, so you can more effectively track ROI. Some key marketing takeaways here are to have a really robust digital presence. It is absolutely critical throughout all stages of the funnel, especially in situations like this with the coronavirus. Use real-time data to plan your enrollment, your strategy, and recruitment travel. Content is king, as Jonah showed us. So use content marketing to tell a compelling story. And whatever you do, make sure that your slogan is not "start here, go anywhere." And finally, remain human in your messaging. Show some solidarity and some authenticity, and it will go a really long way. And at this time, I'd like to pass it back to Simon for some final words. He's going to speak a little bit about what exciting things are coming next from IDP Connect.
Thanks, Ellie. I'll try video. If it pauses, which I think we may have lost sound earlier, then I'll turn video off. So I just want to, in the remaining time, just cover what's next and cover a couple of specific product development items that are going to be launched in the coming weeks. The first is virtual events. So in the recent weeks, what we've been doing with travel plans being cancelled or rearranged, the solutions we've been offering is participation on behalf of institutions, our trained counsellors, or video link up. But moving forward, we are rolling out virtual events for most countries where we're not going to be holding the physical events in the coming weeks. And I just want to talk about that student journey and what that is going to look like with a virtual event. So a student registers, and that's typically by our website or through the campaigns that we run in country. And to give you a sense of the volumes, that's about 120,000 students who are registering for our events each year. They sign up and sign in. They enter their details, and at the third stage they receive a reminder email. And then the fourth stage is a really important step. So that is where our counsellors in country then come in and they qualify the student for a one-on-one video chat. So they will make sure that they are relevant and are going to have meaningful conversations with the schools, the colleges that are at that event. So the student, as they come into the event, they will browse the different booths. That will be an opportunity to look at the translated content, the video content that Ellie spoke about, and then, where relevant, they will then step into the live chat in the pre-arranged slots. So for an event which we just ran in test for Australia, where 8 Australian universities joined that. So they're having about 5 of those live chats per hour. So quality conversations where the student answers those queries and then they sign out at the end with a thank you. So flipping that and looking at what it looks like from our clients' perspective. A client is registering, so if there's a school that can't make one of the physical events, then the option to pass that across to virtual. The client booth setup is done in partnership with our teams, the branding, the logos, the videos, the content that we've already got. So really about getting everything set up smoothly so that the client can then sign in, deal with the queries, answer the queries, engage, have those quality conversations, complete the notes, and then on sign out, once the chat window is finished, then obviously catch the student details, the prospective students' inquiry details. So the this virtual event, as I said, has been tested in Australia. We've used it for some time in India, but we're going to be looking for a global solution for the coming weeks for our partners. So that is really taking the physical event and moving it to virtual. There will be add-ons that come over time. So, for example, on-demand webinars, the ability for students to come in to booths and listen to talks from academics from your institution, and we're going to build on that. But what we'd love to hear is what would be a great client experience for you virtually. That's been mapped out with our some of our advisory panels, but we'd love to hear more and quite quickly, because it's in development at the moment. So that's replacing the physical events. We're going to introduce something that's coming again in the coming weeks, and this is a video Q&A. And I will be very honest and say that this is an idea that we've taken from Google Cameo. So that is a functionality, it's a company that Google bought, where it was rolled out last year, where users, in our case it will be prospective students, can come onto the platform and ask a question, which is then answered by, in the case of Cameo, by influencers. We are going to use this technology to allow prospective students, to ask questions, which will then be answered in the first instance by institution, schools, and by our counselling experts as well. So if we just flip to the next slide, Annie. So what we see this in the second stage will be that current students, as Ellie said, as key influencers, will be able to come onto the platform and answer those questions. It's going to be hosted in our app, and the app has been launched in beta in India, and it's going to be rolled out to all countries by the end of June. And the app is going to be something that we really see as the counsellor in students' pocket. It's where they will do their course searches and matches with new matching technology, which is going to be AI driven. It's where they can ask these Q&A questions, and it's where they can see their latest updates. So the Q&A functionality is in development at the moment. So I just want to show you through the video of how it's going to work in app. Hopefully it will play through. So this is where a user logs in, and the 30-second video snippets, the answers will be seen by over 1 million visitors a month. So we can just see the user logging in, selecting the relevant institution and the relevant school or college. That will then prompt some FAQs, which we'll pre-populate with our institution contacts and also by our counsellors. So I want to study science in the US. What is it like? Is the US safe to live in? They submit this question, and then it gets published. It gets pushed out to our institution schools and to our counsellors, who then can answer it. And the answering can be through video functionality. And this is the demo is rolling out. So that can be a member, it could be one of the ambassadors, it could be one of your international teams who answer that question. That will then get published on the app, but also in all other touch points where students are researching, in this case, California State University. So when they're researching on the websites, when they're the fairs and so on. So the approach really, and one of the things that hopefully we've touched on, is the repurposing of content. That the content will go across not just the website, not just through app, the EDMs that we push out, and really what we want to do is obviously minimise the work and the content collection burden that you as schools and colleges have, and distribute it to the many prospective students we have through our physical and digital channels each week. So we'd love to invite questions and any feedback as we develop those products and services to our tech campus. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Simon. I know I'm very excited about that. I think it's the future of prospective student search habits, so very much looking forward to that. I see we did have a few questions come in. Someone said, time to change our 3 Under a Tree brochure and wants to know, does humor work for marketing? I know that humor has some downfalls, but maybe a focus group of our current students might work. Mr. Duffin, any insights on that?
I quite like humour, so I think it can, and most certainly, and I think we just need to be careful that it doesn't offend anyone, and that it works across different cultures and different countries. But it most certainly can, and I think there's also, I'm going to just argue against myself on the 300 tree, that some people would say that that and the mortarboard and all of those sort of imagery actually is important, so that when someone opens a prospectus or a brochure, they understand what this is for, that it's for a university, that it is about graduating and about getting an education. So I think, you know, it's slightly tongue-in-cheek to the 300 tree, and we do need to be unique, and we do need to find different ways of selling ourselves, but we can't be completely afraid of having those little snippets of imagery that just indicate who we are and what we do.
I think just to add to that, Jonah, as well, is the data will tell, you know, will prove whether things are working or not. So we can look at the proportion of people that are looking at content that are then clicking through to the university site, and we can test that. We can A/B test that and see what works for different nationalities as well.
Excellent. It looks like the other questions that came in are actually comments. So people saying greetings from Wisconsin. If anyone has any more questions, please do feel free to submit them to us now, or feel free to reach out to us at the email address listed here after the webinar. But if there are no further questions, sorry, go ahead. If there are no further questions, then we want to thank you all so much for joining us. Please remember that international students are still searching. They still want to fulfill their study abroad dreams, and we can certainly help you to get the word out about your brand. So thank you all so much for joining us. Please stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you next time.